Hey everyone, Skull902 here, and welcome back to Super Mario Bros. 3. This here is part 3, and I'm going to be going through the water world in this here part. Good stuff, good stuff. If I sound off, or just generally less energetic than I usually do, which is, saying something because I don't sound that energetic in the first place, I apologize. I haven't been feeling good the last couple of days. These stomach problems I've been having all this year, rather. So just excuse me. I didn't even do any commentary yesterday when I meant to, because of how miserable I felt. But I felt just good enough today to do this. So let's get into it. First thing I want to say about the water world is, oh my god, the fucking water theme. Like, it is so magnificent. Koji Kondo did an incredible job on this. Though I gotta say, like, in terms of the water theme from this game, it really only sounds this great on the Super Nintendo version. On the NES version, it's alright, but I think lacks instrumentation, due to the limitations of the 8-bit console, obviously. And then on the Game Boy Advance version, like, that system's soundboard was not great by any means. I mean, there's good sounding songs on the GBA, it wasn't impossible, but for the water theme in Mario 3, it didn't really do the song justice, I think, so that's a bit unfortunate that it only sounds truly like super great on the Super Nintendo, but it is what it is. Fantastic song, though, and I just wanted to point out how wonderful it was. Unfortunately, these levels are really short, so we don't get to see very much of it, or hear, rather, very much of it. And I was talking over the whole thing, so that's a whole other issue, but, whatever. But with World 3, though, actually, something's gonna happen after this. I might as well save what I was about to say about World 3 in general, but Luigi's about to go to the Toad House here, and this is the first of the, like, next level power-ups in the game. The frog suit. The frog suit, not very useful on land, though it does come with the benefit of an increased jump height. But it is unbelievably useful in the water, and we'll be seeing that in Part 4 eventually. So, good stuff, good stuff. Here's an enemy, Boss Bass, that can definitely be frustrating at times, for sure. But that's the thing about World 3, is like, World 3 I think is the first time in this game that really tests you, and that can kind of be shown in just how long this part is in comparison to the first two. It's got quite a lot of levels, and they start amping up the challenge a bit. They give you a break with the next world, but yeah, this is where they really start expecting you to be better with your platforming, more tight with the jumps and everything like that. So, just watch out and be careful, is what I've got to say about this. But something else that I want to mention is the cartoons, because back in the late 80s and the early 90s, Nintendo had a bit of a partnership with Deke Entertainment, who made a couple of cartoons based on the franchise, the first of which was the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. It ran between 1989 and, well, I was going to say 1990, but I think all the episodes aired in 89. That doesn't matter. The first one was Super Mario Bros. Super Show. That was more so based off of Mario 1 and 2. And then we had The Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3, which ran in 1990. And that's like when they moved over from broadcast syndication to NBC. So I don't know anything if they got like a increased budget from that. The animation doesn't look any better, so I'm gonna presume no. But that also meant less episodes per season. But Super Mario Bros. 3 in 1990 also featured some recasting and changes to the formula, which I'll talk about after briefly mentioning the third in the chronology, Super Mario World, which aired in 1991. So we had those 3 cartoons. In the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, the cartoon segments, of which there were only 1 per episode. There was only 1 cartoon story per episode, but they were, how should I say, outlined, I guess? I'll come up with the proper term later, I'm sure. But they were, like, bookended with live action segments. With professional wrestling personality Captain Lou Albano as Mario, and Danny Wells as Luigi. And my god, the live action segments are the reason you watch the show. Like, the animated segments are fine enough, I guess, but like, oh man, live action Mario and Luigi could have been a show all on its own. Great stuff. But when they moved to NBC in 1990 with Super Mario Bros. 3, they changed things up a bit. Most of the time, if not all of the time, it was like 2 segments per show. And they changed like a couple of the design elements. Like at some point during that season, Mario got brown hair as opposed to the black hair that he had before. Luigi would keep black hair throughout the entirety of the series, so I don't know why did they change Mario's hair, but they also changed a couple of the voice actors. Mario, Luigi, and Princess Toadstool, as she was known at the time, all got new voice actors for Super Mario Bros. 3 and World. Toad stayed the same in Mario Bros. 3. He was replaced in Mario World. But the character they essentially replaced him with had the same voice actor. And Bowser, or King Koopa as he's referred to most of the time, is still voiced by the same guy. So, a couple of changes, a new network, possibly but probably not more money in the budget. But, you know, it's a bit of an interesting thing that they had tie-in cartoons, because for a while it seemed like Nintendo wouldn't do anything like that. Now that there's a Mario Bros. Movie coming out, it seems more likely. But back then, not so, or well, back like a few years ago anyway, not so much. Back in the 80s, sure. They loved licensing the shit out of their properties, to mixed results. I love these cartoons. Super Show the most of them, purely because of the live action segments, but it's a fun time watching. But I wanted to bring up the cartoon because there is a particular short segment from it, and I gotta imagine a couple of you are already kind of smiling and know what I'm going to be talking about, is because Wendy Koopa is the boss in Mario 3 World 3 here. I sure could have delivered that better, but whatever. Since Wendy Koopa is the boss in this world, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the episode Cootie Pie Rocks. Cootie Pie is her name in the show, and apparently all the Koopalings had different names in the show as opposed to the games, because they didn't actually have names in the Japanese version of the game. So, like, in the Japanese manual, they don't have names. I guess they're just the Koopalings. And, like, it was up to Nintendo of America for the game and Deke for the show to come up with names for them. Obviously, the names from Nintendo of America stuck. I can't even remember, like, some of the other... I think Cootie Pie is the only one that I can attach to a particular Koopa, and that's because she's the only girl. So, good on you, Deke. Nice not keeping in contact with Nintendo about that, lol. But anyway. Cutie Pie Rocks is a particularly special episode of Super Mario Bros. 3 because they made it like a promotional crossover, or like they had guest stars on it, I should say. And those guest stars were the French/German pop group Milli Vanilli. I'm not fucking kidding you. And for those who don't know who Milli Vanilli are, like I said, it was a duo. They had like a band, of course, to play the music and whatnot. The duo themselves were a French guy and a German guy. I can't be bothered to remember their names, so I'm just gonna call them Milli and Vanilli. But they were the subject of a controversy at some point because they were discovered to have not really been the singers of their songs, which is amazing that there was even any speculation about it before the big reveal, because my god, do they sound so different from the singers, like when they were doing interviews and shit. It should have been obvious right from the start, but I guess that's how people were back then. I don't know. So anyway, now that you know who Milli Vanilli are, famous lip-syncing duo that tried to pawn themselves off as like the actual singers and whatnot. The very plot of this episode is, I'm just gonna do like a complete rundown because I know that I suck at doing commentary and this is gonna save me some time. But like, it opens up and Mario and Luigi are getting ready for some big ol' shindig in the real world, because that was something in these old cartoons, was that the real world and the worlds from the games were separate from each other. Mario and Luigi came from Brooklyn and whatnot, so that's something to keep in mind. It's not terribly important to the plot of the episode, but whatever. So Mario and Luigi are getting ready for this. They're in tuxedos and whatnot, and Toad is as well. And I love, like, Luigi and Bowser, or King Koopa, are like the only reasonable characters in this entire episode. And Luigi quips something like, "Hey Mario, why do we gotta wear these stupid penguin suits?" You know, it's great. He makes another great comment later. I'll talk about that. But they're getting dressed up, and then Toad's like, "Oh, well, you know, the princess wants to go to some performance in the real world, so it must be really big and important." And then like Peach comes down, and she's dressed up like an 80s punk rocker chick or something, and it's great. And Mario and Luigi are like, "Toad?" So it's wonderful. So they go to the real world and the concert, which I don't think it's explicitly stated, but they modeled the baseball stadium that the concert takes place in after Shea Stadium, which was at the time the home of the New York Mets. Always the little brother to the Yankees. Sorry, Mets fans. So that's a pretty interesting bit of trivia about that episode, I suppose. So they're doing the performance. Mario and Luigi are like covering their ears because of the screams from all the women in the crowd, due to Milli Vanilli's magical performance. And so, like, meanwhile, one of the Koopalings, Cheatsy is the name in the show. I forget which one he represents. He's like, "Ooh man, Milli Vanilli's doing a concert. I better go tell Cutie Pie," and she gets all fucking mad and throws a tantrum like children do. She's like, "King Dad, I want to go to this concert. Get Milli Vanilli for me. And Koopa's like, okay, I'll get you, silly the Willies and whatnot. So it's wonderful. You take this boat, by the way. It's a good thing, especially if you're not shitty at the match game like I am. Anyway, so because Cheatsy instigated it as well, Koopa takes him along, and so Milli Vanilli's performing, and so, like, in the Doom Ship, as they call it, like, one of the airships from the game, they, like, suck Milli Vanilli up in a tractor beam and just fucking snatch him. And everyone thinks it's a part of the concert. So that's wonderful. But Mario and Luigi have their suspicions. So do the Princess and Toad. And so they're like, okay, we gotta save Milli Vanilli because something's going on here. Meanwhile, Milli Vanilli are brought into the castle for Cutie Pie. And she's just like, okay, you're performing for me now exclusively. And my god, these guys are the worst actors of all time. At least the one tried. The French one tried. The German one did not try whatsoever with his performance. Millie tried. Vanilli did not. So they get into a bit of a back and forth with her, and she's like, if you don't do this concert for me, I'll turn you into accountants. And as part of the wonderful acting on the part of Millie and Vanilli, they're just like, haha, that is a good one. Ha 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 ha. Like that's how they laugh. That was a stupid Lost of the Fire Flower, by the way. But that's how they laugh. It's fucking, it's hysterical. That anyone thought that these guys were the real singers. So, you know, they're laughing. Ha 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 ha. And so Cutie Pie gets pissed off and turns them into accountants. And so they're still refusing because they don't have a backup band. And she's like, if you still refuse to do this band for me, I'll turn you both into Beatles. And then we get a great line from Vanilli, which just, like, this show is such a product of its time. But he's just like, great, who wants to be a band from the 60s? Yeah, who would want to be a legendary band that everybody loves? I mean, I'm not a fan of the Beatles, but it's undeniable that they're legendary in the music industry. So, you know, Milli Vanilli really making a statement here. They're here to last, unlike the Beatles. God. So, again, they go back and forth, and Mario and Co. find them in the castle, and Mario's like, okay, I got a plan. We're gonna be the backup band. And Luigi, with his next great line, is just like, do we have to? And Mario's just like, yeah. So they come in dressed up like a backup band, of course. And Mario introduces them as backups are we, which presumably, at least according to Mario Wiki, is a Toys R Us reference. And like, Cutie Pie's like, okay, now play the song. So they play the song that they were doing at the concert, I think. And they do it really shittily. So much so that Bowser comes in, and again, like Luigi, he's one of the only reasonable people in the entire short. He's just like, turn that shit off. But he's driven by a completely intentional attack by Toad, and totally not an accident whatsoever. By the way, when you're in the boat, and even when you go through the tube to get through this part, this little set of islands there, it's Japan. And the castle, I believe, is located where Kyoto, where Nintendo's headquarters at the time would be. So, interesting stuff. But to finish up this rant about the Mario 3 episode, like they play the band, or they play the song, and it's enough of a distraction to get Milli Vanilli out of there. Cutie Pie throws another fucking fit. And then Bowser is just like, you know what? Fuck you. I'd rather listen to your screaming than the band. And then she threatens to get the band back herself, and he's like, oh no. You promise to forget about them right now or I'll throw you in the dungeon. A reasonable response. And she's just like, okay, I'll forget. So, yeah. This is something that's gonna happen every now and then. Sometimes I'll fail a castle and have to do it with the other brother. I'm sorry. Or sorry, an airship. So anyway, back at the concert, everything's normal again. Milli Vanilli are performing, and Peach, with the shittiest dancing animation of all time, just looks on in awe. And Mario makes a comment about doing the band thing full time, like the backup band that they did. And ha ha ha. Like, what a great end to the episode right there. So that's the story of Cutie Pie Rocks, the episode of Super Mario Bros. 3, or rather the Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3 by Deke Entertainment, starring Milli Vanilli. And the great thing about that episode airing was it was only very slightly, the original air date was only very slightly after definitive evidence came out that they were fucking frauds. So, absolutely beautiful timing there, and only like a couple weeks before the record label decided to admit it to the media as well. So, absolutely wonderful. And you know what? Wendy/Cutie Pie, for liking Milli Vanilli, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna need to kick your ass and get that wand back from you. So yeah, beautiful story. I may do more episode summaries from the Mario 3 cartoon just to pad out time like this. Because again, I'm shit at commentary, and I'm very sorry about that. But that's something I'll have to worry about next time. Hey, Mario's the king. Nice. He is the king of video games after all. But anyway, that's gonna be it for me for this part. I've been Skull902, thank you for watching, and have yourselves a wonderful day.